They said he'd be here, but you guys have the form.
All right, it is 8 o'clock, Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. I'll call this meeting of the Board of Harbor Commissioners for the town of LaPointe to order. With us this morning via Zoom, we have Michael Collins and Susan Widmar. Live and in person, we have Evan Erickson.
Here.
Myself, Glenn Carlson.
Here.
Staff present, Lauren Berteau and Katie Kisner. And from the public, we have Charlie and Paul Brummer. Public comment? Paul?
If you request that start having these meetings in the evenings, at least 4:30, not 5. Every other town in has their meetings in the evenings. I don't even know if Elon Musk into the Skillage group have a meeting at 8 morning. Have it, so more people can attend. That's my recommendation.
Paul? Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, real quick, I know today's the last day of the period, I'm probably gonna go over myself and let it go running, but at some point, you know, we're, that Winslet as a town just paid $500,000 for 2 of them a few years ago. And I just worry that, you know, you're doing more damage to the boats running these last, week or so. And you know, if the Winslets are there, let's maybe use them for a little while. I mean, it's great if you go from the ferry to a nice road, but at what cost? And just hope you guys keep that in mind. And I'm not saying it's your fault, because I know you're working step in step with the ferry line or Miffle, whatever they call themselves on right now. So, but just from an outsider looking in, it just seemed like, you know, you got $500,000 of Winslet, and you're doing $200,000 damage to the boats, running an extra week. I don't know. Just an account. Thanks.
Thanks, Charlie. Let the record show that Jay Wiltz has joined us. Next up on the agenda are the minutes of the 2/6 meeting. That's okay. We'll move on to Chief Administrative Officer report.
So I have the current balances of the Harbor Commission bank accounts. This is as of Monday, the 10th. You'll see that the utility checking account, it is slightly over 838,000. That was basically all of the transfer from the certificate of deposit went to the utility account. That has 289,000 of that has now been transferred back to the debt service fund savings account, where it's supposed to be. The February revenue as of Monday was $24,663.45, which puts us at just under 26% of our budgeted income for the month. And then lastly, Miffle is still working on the policy write-up for the students' transportation, the new system that they have, as well as the last column of the payroll information that was requested. They've just been working on the tariff and scheduling stuff first.
Thanks, Katie. Anybody have anything for her else? I'll move that we place the Chief Administrative Officer report on file.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 2025 tariff discussion.
Well, we had our meeting with Miffle on Monday on looking over the tariffs. Found out in that meeting that the original data that we were given, the count number was a mixture of round trip and one way, which means that we weren't working with accurate data. And there was some errors in Miffle's tariff sheet that they have for suggested that I believe they clean up and sent a new one this morning. I on Monday night updated the spreadsheet to make sure that the count category was correct. And I forward that on to Glenn, Zach, and Katie for review. And I believe Glenn did some work with that.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Do you want me to?
Yeah, because you worked with it more than after I.
Sure. Yeah, and what Evan had tried to do is say, okay, let's go with what Miffle is suggesting as far as the increase in the passenger full fare. But let's go with what the Harbor Commission wants as far as the keep holding down the mag card rates. And then solving for X is how much do we then have to raise every other rate? Other than the ones that we've already said, we're not going to raise at all, like, some of the food deliveries and propane and that sort of thing. Comes to a 60% increase in everything else to get that to work. And, I don't think that that's really feasible. I did ask Katie to ask Robin if there was documentation of a time when they had raised the rates so much that they did see a decline in traffic. And apparently they've never raised the rates too much that it caused a decline in traffic. And they've also never raised the rates as much as we're proposing. So I think that the Harbor Commission, that one rate, the one-way passenger rate is, half almost of the whole nut. And so that's, I think, what the Harbor Commission really needs to focus on. I have run some of those numbers, and even with increasing the mag card rate to about 9% and change, increasing the regular vehicle rate to round trip $36. And by the way, the vehicle rate of $36 round trip is what the Mackinac Island ferry charges for round trip passenger, one passenger. And if we were then to increase the full fare passenger, I like it. We talked about going up to 11, but I think, let's say 1075, that's almost a 20% increase. That then would allow us to increase everything else except for, again, those categories that we're not going to increase at all by 20% instead of 60%. Robin?
Yeah, I sent last night, I went through the tariff, kept the passenger rate at 975, and I got 5.8.
I reviewed that spreadsheet quickly this morning. First of all, the spreadsheet count data is incorrect due to the fact that we didn't understand that there was a mixture of one-way and round trips in the count category. So the formula won't come out correctly. And like I said, I reworked that spreadsheet Monday night so that count category is correct.
Okay, but you did share it with me because
I did not. Yeah, I did not pass that
Yeah.
along. Happy to.
Well, I just don't see how we can do it with 975. And frankly, if there is going to be a decline in revenue, at that point, I'm willing to go to the taxpayers and say, hey, we raised the rates too much. We're going to have to go to you this year to help make up, rather than have them say, hey, now we're going to do what Cal wants done on capital expenditures this year. We're going to either raise the fares to 1075 or we're going to raise taxes. Or Cal's not going to get to do the maintenance that he thinks we need to do. And from my standpoint, I would much rather have the taxpayers be the backup for having us estimate how much we're going to get in revenue on the fares rather than the other way around.
And another note to your spreadsheet, at the bottom, you have added in the mail contract, which is a separate line item. We're trying to get the ticketing revenue up to that 5.8.
And that's what the one I sent last night did.
Robin, with all due respect, the first one you sent over was off by over $250,000.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of faith in your spreadsheets anymore.
At 7 last night, I sent the second one, which was got us by a little bit of 5.8, that 975. I mean, it's your choice what to do. I spent many years working at a restaurant chain. And we did see a problem with revenue by raising the rates too much. Bear in mind for over 30 years. We saw the same thing.
You just told Katie you hadn't seen it.
We didn't raise it $1, but I mean, the rates for passengers were a lot lower. I mean, we had to raise the rates in Katrina because the gas prices are so high. There's surcharge on it. We definitely see an impact on customers.
And there's another,
Washington Island Ferry is only $7.50 one way. They go a longer distance than we go. Similar.
Do you know how you think they're able to operate so much more leanly?
I comment on that, that's right. Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest areas that allows them to operate that lean is they're running 2 trips all winter long. You know, and that's where we're kind of hemorrhaging that money, is in the amount of service that we provide in comparison. It's
And late night service.
yeah, they focus on the busy, profitable trips, especially in winter, where they will, you know, they will leave people on the dock if they overfill sometimes, just because
They have reservations open.
yeah,
I mean, if you want a lumber truck, they have reservations.
so that's a huge cost.
Right, and they're also running, I mean, they have 5 or 6 captains. They run like 60, 70 hours. They do a lot of time. And they don't have the financing, 1.5 million in financing. So. But we are like a sister company to them. I mean, there's a lot of things that we do that is very similar to them. And that's where we get a lot of free bumps ideas on maintenance, pricing.
and that kind of leads into the next piece of the puzzle here and is really why I pushed to have this meeting this morning, was to address our wants and needs in the schedule, because with that, you saw Cal's email, comes an additional almost $300,000 in operating costs. So before we could really even entertain the tariffs discussion, it seemed prudent to nail down the scheduling request.
So it's definitely interrelated.
Right.
And so Cal's figures is for I didn't get a chance to read this yet. This is for Misa's requests, and then also the 7 PM boats in the spring and fall. And that's okay.
Are we, do we have any, we want to talk about scheduling now, or are we ready to, I don't feel like we're ready to make any tariff decision. With the,
It sounds like we got a lot of work to do left on the tariffs to even get accurate, know what we're agreeing to or not agreeing to.
yeah, I think we're close, but
I'll just table this till the next meeting.
I'd like to echo what Jay said. We need to, there's been a lot of numbers floating around, some of them on pieces of paper and some more conceptual. We're going to need to put in front of us sort of a lucid outline of the options on paper. And I think an enormous amount of progress has been made. But I don't think we're ready now to look at things apples to apples.
Well, I'll move, we table the tariff discussion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So next up is the schedule discussion, 2025 schedule.
Are these trips that we ran last year at all? Or are these additional on top of what we requested for last year?
I think the 7 o'clock after October, whatever the date was, are similar.
Yeah, because we ran that 7 until end of November,
Until December.
December?
It was almost January even, wasn't it?
No.
No, it was December 1st, yeah.
But so the new additional ones would be April, which I feel, especially with now that we actually have ice and cold weather, that those late April, early May trips, we're probably going to be still dealing with we could be dealing with ice when we're not going to be wanting to run those late trips. It's a possibility.
And we had the request from Hillary for the soccer kids, which Cal pointed out at our budget meeting, our tariff meeting, that it makes more sense to handle those as a special trip rather than as a scheduled run. And just accommodate the one night a week.
Has the cost of the MISA requests been broken out independently somewhere?
It hasn't, but ultimately, the MISA request is not a significant cost increase on top of the 7 PM. It's breaking into the 7 PM that opens up the cost. And then from there, it's just additional wear and tear in the fuel. It's and then the hourly rate, but you're making the jump in the 7. That's where the cost is really coming from. So MISA is not factoring in more than the per trip cost.
That helps. Thank you.
Yes. Which I did outline there, how many trips MISA is specifically requesting. So you could take that times the special rate and essentially get a rough outline of what that ask is.
Now, what would be, let's say, the approximate cost if we took into account the things that you are saying might be problematic? Okay, so in other words, not doing not having staff do 5 days a week, 7 PM starting in April. Not going to longer than a 12-hour shift or 5-day work week. I mean, what would you do in that context to sort of not create a problem for employee morale, and yet try to accommodate the schedule, the 7 PM, let's say, as much as possible? Is there an intermediate place?
That's what we're at. I mean, because we're running, Thursday through Thursday, Friday, Friday, Saturday, we're running at about the half week point. And that's really where it does allow, a kind of middle ground. And so that we're at that, we started in May, if I remember correctly. And so that's the middle ground, but it's really then once, now I'm setting that 7 PM out into, into December. That's really where it's like, we just need more staff. In those schedules, the amount of shifts that we're requesting for that 7 PM is just too much for overtime. Which is how we're kind of addressing it right now is, okay, well, there's a few days a week, we can sort of move things around, but once it becomes every day, yes, we hit that hurdle where it's like, no, we need to have more year-round.
Is it getting you more captains or deckhands?
So at the moment, as I showed, it's like we need really one captain additional to what we're currently staffing year round, but it is a significant decade because we tend to have, in this time of year, we might have 2 captains on the boat. So in the summer, we typically have 1 captain on the boat and we keep captains as year round staff. So it's not necessarily as much of a captain issue as it is deckhand, but it would require at least 1 more year-round captain than we currently have. I created a schedule for all of these periods, so I actually took our staff as it exists right now and anticipated when people are coming back, and I can't run it. Right now I can get the captains covered, so I can have all the boat trips are covered with the captain, but if anybody is out sick, if any one thing happens, I can't cover it then. So that's really where it's like, if that's where that extra captain comes in.
And you're not getting the maintenance.
Yeah, and that's borrowing, again, but a reasonable amount from maintenance. Ideally, you have 1 more captain and 3 more deckhands. And again, the 3 deckhands is exactly for the same reason. 2 deckhands would perfectly cover the schedule. But if any one deckhand, which is very likely with the amount of deckhands we have, and again, I was in January, I was on the boat multiple times a week, exactly for that reason. It's not efficient for me to be on the boat, but boat's got to run, and so when staff calls in sick, we keep it running. But again, if we stretch it that thin without a reserve, then it's just, I'm gonna have to say, hey, we can't make these trips today, or we're gonna have to shut down at 3 because we just don't have the staff. So as far as the middle ground, I think it's just to break that 12-hour barrier. It's just going to need in the off season. In the prime season, when I can get more staff readily, it's not as big. And that's essentially what I'm saying. Like June 14th, when NISA has their requests for additional trips, that's not a huge impact. I can get staff to accommodate that. That's just about when they start showing.
Retirements.
Yep. So
Do you have it advertised anywhere that, you're looking for deckhands in the community and the benefits that Miffle provides being an employee of Miffle?
no, we don't currently have that out right now. It's on the website, but we're currently not in a
Yes.
need for it, right? So I don't need crew right now, so I don't have that out. I do have people still applying, so I do have a wait list at the moment. But if we went to this course, we'd have to put that out to the public.
Go ahead, Susan.
I wonder if your standby crews are getting paid for any kind of reserve time.
So the standby crew, so we have, every day we have essentially in the winter, we have 1 primary boat, 1 secondary boat. The secondary boat, which would be the extra or other boat, would be the standby crew. And as it works right now is if they clock in all the same, they show up, they have to make the first trip, and they're usually needed for the last trip all the same. And if they're not needed throughout the day, they go to maintenance projects, inspecting the boat, cleaning, taking care of the vessels and our facilities. So they get paid throughout the day.
Okay, I guess I don't consider that standby. I should be at home and be ready for a phone call if I'm needed.
We don't do that. That wouldn't be kind of an effective model for us, just because the mobilization time for a standby crew like that is often hour to 2. So we don't have like a standby on-call crew other than for XL, police runs, and ambulance.
Cal, what would you think that if this intermediate level was where we went, what kind of increase would you estimate that would be?
Like specifically, what do you mean by intermediate?
Well, you're not running, let's say, the 7 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday into November and December.
Mm-hmm.
but still, you know, keeping the rest of what we've talked about. Sort of how much can we push with just, you know, paying a little extra versus how much do we push that's going to be a problem for staffing or morale? And so I think, you know, how much can we push to just, you know, pay a little bit more to get someone, you know, where is that? Is that half of the 290? Would it be?
Essentially outside, I mean, that's the biggest issue for me outside of, before June 14th and past September 5th, we're already stretched to that level. We're already, you know, we're in overtime. I'm on the boat. We've got maintenance on the boat. So we're already kind of into that, but that's normal for us because then past October, we start going back down to what our staff can allow.
Got it.
So that's really where any increase post September or pre-June 14th, when I don't have you know, access to that additional staff, requires an increase. So then at that point, you know, it really would just essentially go right back to that number of, I mean, that's how we've always worked, is we kind of stretch as much as we can and then we shrink back down, but it's a finite thing. So, you know, if you wanted to extend it, you know, 1 more week or 2 more weeks, okay, yeah, I mean, that's not, you know, to break us. But to try and say, okay, we want to go to September, or October, November, I mean, that's where it's like, we just don't have the personnel. We have the personnel to get through September, but that's borrowing from the maintenance and kind of postponing any projects at that point.
And actually, after, summer kids start leaving the first week in August. So in August,
It really
it's
starts.
really,
Yeah, and so we limit vacation, you know, we limit a lot of those things during that time specifically for the reason.
When is the last time that you tried hiring like new deckhands year round? And do you have a problem filling those? Do you think if we were to post?
I think I could do deckhands. Deckhands is, I don't foresee that being a major issue. Getting year-round deckhands, it's usually I'm turning them away. I have more people wanting to be year-round deckhand than I can staff. So I think by the end of this year, I could have the deckhand portion.
That eases the burden on the captains then, because you could split them up on
Okay.
separate boats. So
Yeah,
it
but
seems like a
then we'll still
no-brainer.
need The captain to run it, so we'll still have overtime. So again, I think we would be close to that number once you factor in the fact that they're getting time and a half to run.
well, then we probably, I mean, there are pending retirements. We have some people working in the summer that are retired, and if they don't come back, we're some area.
So I don't, it's hard for me, I guess, convey that like level of. I feel we're already at our stretch, and to ask the crew to go more than what the schedule is, really is gonna just require more crew. Deckhands, again, that's what I'm saying, I think if you wanna run the second half of the schedule, you know, into December. Whatever, I think I could do it, I think I could get, you know, the deckhands to do it.
I mean, we made it, you made it work last year.
I did,
And-
it was unsuccessful, we had people coming in complaining about not having morning coverage. So I made it work by putting maintenance on the boat and putting myself on the boat. But then we had people coming in saying, there's not enough coverage. I don't wanna get into that situation again, because we're now postponing a bunch of projects that we should have done in fall. We're now doing in winter, it's a lot harder to weld on the deck now than it is in fall.
You're right, Cal, though, that you thought that at least the 7 PM running later into the season, it would be doable if you could get more deckhands.
Certainly, I don't foresee running the 7 PM and late into the season as a problem at this point. It's just
the
a
duck
monetary
hands. Yeah.
issue, but I think I can get the staff, I'm just trying to make you aware of the cost.
But the staff, starting wage is higher than our
They're
charter.
asking for more, so it's not like, that's the issue, is you said, run this effective April.
Right.
I can't, yeah, because the staff, the people that I have on the wait list are asking for much.
Yeah, and I think I mean, from my standpoint, looking more into like the fall.
Right,
So,
I still think that's way more reasonable. Yeah,
With the 7 beginning as it's laid out on this, like April 25th, the end of April? Or pushing it off to the next?
I would say
Schedule
that
block.
we don't increase anything on the schedule until June 14th for the NISA request. which is gonna be, again, it's gonna be stretched within there, because I only have like 2 or 3 deckhands coming in at that point in mid-June. But I'd say that's where we start the expansion, and then from there on out, we can, continue the requested schedule into December. It's pretty much post-December that again, I get back into the safety concerns, where, if we're scheduled to run it, it's a lot different to me than a special trip where we know we're supposed to be attending, we know who to contact, and we can find alternatives for that a lot easier.
These additional trips for MISA, are we charging them the special rate fee for those trips?
Not that I was conveyed to need to write a schedule, so it'd be included in the schedule during those periods.
Okay,
So it'd just be a regular included trip. But again, the MISA ask is during if you're already running the 7 PM in fall, you've already taken on that staff to run the 7 PM, is not a huge significant increase at that point to add what needs to be added. And then in spring, his season starts right March ramps up, so it's again not a significant ask. Other than the cost of fuel.
What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously you have a staffing issue, right, Cal? So that's what you gotta work on the hardest.
Yeah.
So we can bring down overtime and increase service.
And my original plan for this was 2 years, in 2 years I could grow into this very healthy. As far as being not really having a major issue about it, I can try and expedite that to a year, and then this year again, we're gonna be paying a lot of overtime. And then hopefully by, next year, again, we're a little bit more on track with the captain count. The deckhand is a major concern at this point.
Susan's got her hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Susan.
Do we have any info on how many retirees are coming up? What are you expecting, and over the course of the calendar, what will you expect to see?
Retirees,
Some captains are retiring. Do we know how
Yes.
many? Do we know when?
so I have, at the moment. I have 4 captains who are technically retired, who are still showing up. They're essentially filling the spot of a lot of people. They can disappear at any point. There's really nothing holding them up other than they enjoy what they do. As far as, I guess planned retirements, that's nobody has specifically said that they're going to be done this season. But I would anticipate that we're looking at 1 to 2, captains within the coming years here, of which we have new captains coming up. We have, we've just got 3 new captains last year. We have 2 more captains about, but they're just replacing kind of that existing staff. So we're on a trajectory to be perfect. But yes, and then I have another potential mate, which would be a captain kind of in the works, but they're 2 years out at this point. So I have enough to cover the existing retirees, maybe even the potential retirees, just because of their timeline. And that's kind of what we have, but I don't have enough to just have access to run a significant target. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So April 25th through May 8th, you would still be tentatively looking at just a 5 o'clock to the island and a 5:30 off?
Yeah.
And adding a 6 o'clock to the island and 6:30 off, does that,
It's the same problem.
same problem?
Yeah. It bumps it over 12 and then I gotta split the shift.
I'd say go with the June, I mean, from my standpoint, go with the June 14th with the 7 PMs. And I don't know if I'd say put something in the schedule for the fall at this point for, after September 5th for the 7 PMs or wait until after we can see if you're able to get the deckhands you need for that.
I think it's better to wait, don't print it with it on, because we can update the web.
Mhm.
And so many people go by the web and post it once.
Sure.
We'll try something, we can.
I mean, that's the safest option for sure.
Is there somewhere on the printed part that says check the website for the most up-to-date schedule?
That's right. in here.
Zach?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Glenn said. Given all that the options that have been floating around here, the one that seems to be the simplest to default to, if we're trying to make a schedule decision, is to start that 7 p.m. after July 14th, but to suspend any decision about that for the after Labor Day until we know about how the hiring works.
And then with it, the June 14th is a specific to NISA. That's actually, we already have a Senate at that point. We're just doing it 8 and 8:30, so that would be a schedule change for that time period. It'd be an 8 and an 8:34 to meet NISA's requests.
And you don't think that that's significantly,
I think I think we can
Okay.
stretch a little bit to accommodate that, that's right in that.
That's great. That's good.
I guess I'm in agreement, I guess. We still haven't heard from Hillary, but we'll address any special votes as they become apparent for
Just hasn't gotten an update from
the,
folks that are gonna be scheduling soccer.
I just want to leave that open for the kids, the possibility of a special vote one night a week.
Then I'm just to clarify that too, with the, because if you're running that as a special vote to have it, the captains show up, they might be on their day off, they did a special vote rate. Would that then be charged to the town for that?
I think we just absorb cost. It's just no need to send out a bill for that.
the Harbor Commission just absorbs the,
Okay, just so I make sure.
Yeah.
And publicize it so that, we pick up passengers on that night.
thank you.
Yeah.
Do we need any kind of motion there, or do we have a agreement?
There's like more. Good.
I authorize Miffle to make the schedule as we just discussed.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Next up, authorization of new boat proposal for congressional directed spending.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we authorize a proposal for congressionally directed spending to acquire a new ferry boat with a cost not to exceed $25 million. And that it be designed to get through 20 inches of ice.
That's
Second.
something you'll draft, or?
Does that work, Cal? Is a description of the boat?
I mean, it does.
Okay.
I think that ultimately works, yeah. I mean, I think it's a good goal, yeah. 20 inches. That's what, is about.
Are we having some discussion on this?
Yes.
Yeah, Cal, I asked Cal if that was an accurate description of a boat that we would want to request.
Oh, I got you. One question is, do we want to reference capacity in this request? In other words, ice breaking is important, but do we want to have some minimum capacity, some expression of it?
I would say that'd be a great idea. Yeah, put at like a 28 car boat.
Well, it's the boat that was,
So we already
Designed.
yeah.
But that is a good point to say, okay, we have a 60-foot boat that can break, 20 inches of ice. Okay, well, use one criteria, but we also need to carry the people.
Well, I'll basically say that the boat that we had designed for the EPA grant with the modification that we won't be doing the onshore batteries at this point.
Yeah.
But it will be able to be retrofitted, if you will, down the road.
Diesel electric power.
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
Got it, thank you, Mr. Collins.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of bills. What do you got there, Evan?
I'll approve the bills totaling $130,029.46.
I'll second that motion to approve the bills. Any discussion? All in favor?
I,
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carries. Future agenda items.
I think we should probably put on the next agenda, whether it's in approval of bills or a separate line item, the payment of the management fee to
Yeah, yeah.
LLC.
And then, of course, the tariffs.
All I can think of, I think tariffs is what we gotta get down.
Yep, I almost canceled this meeting, but that scheduling discussion seemed. We should probably meet next
Thursday.
week.
Next Thursday.
Oh, yeah, you're
It's
right.
Wednesday.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Tight.
I could do a 9 AM if that's earlier, or if we want to try to start having evening meetings.
I would vote for 9.
Fine either way.
Me too.
And as far as evening meetings, you know, I don't oppose that at all. But I think maybe if we could wait until we're able to get our regular meetings down to once a month, or maybe twice a month, so that, you know, it's not 4 meetings, you know, 4 nights a month, you know, for folks that might only be 1 night or 2 nights a month. So.
And it's nice to have Robin and Cal here. They wouldn't be able to make it if they were after the boats are done running.
Right. Well, yeah, especially now.
Right.
Well, that's a good reason right there to not move the times now. I think, it'd be great to do an evening one so the public be more able to attend. Maybe if we did, if we are running more than 1 a month, if we just did 1 meeting a month where we did an evening meeting so that.
Maybe the first meeting of the month is the one for the evening, and then the rest throughout the month could be mornings.
Or when we approve all the monthly bills.
But I'm flexible. Each time of year.
All right, but next week, 9 o'clock, February 20th, Thursday, February 20th. Other comment? Go ahead, Paul.
I'd ask that you keep in mind having an 8:15 vote for specials available all early winter, because I assure you, it's not convenient, it's excessive. Secondly, thanks for at least talking about having a meeting even once a month. That sure looks a lot better than always being 8, 9 in the morning. It's a step in the right direction.
Thanks, Paul.
Charlotte?
Just want to wish Evan Harrison a happy belated birthday. Never mix it.
That's on purpose. No one would know if I didn't call my dad a Republican years ago.
Actually tomorrow, right?
Is it?
No,
Yeah.
Yesterday? I think Lauren's right.
I thought it was like, yeah. Happy birthday.
Happy
Thanks.
birthday, Evan.
1 year closer to retirement.
Next up is review of the Mithil management contract.
Have any?
You wait for. I gotta get going to the Murph
Okay.
cover for Michael. He's hauling our last load for the season.
All right, I will move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned 8:44.
Good job, Zach.
Figuring